Welcome to the Bernard Lee Poker Show. We are talking with the three-time reigning female GPI Player of the Year. She's also a two-time WSOP bracelet winner, winning her first in 2013 for the Ladies Championship and then winning her second in an open event in 2016 in a bounty tournament for almost $300,000. She also won the Poker Masters, an event there last year. Welcome back to the show, Kristen Bicknell. Kristen,
Hi.
what's interesting to me is what I really want to focus and talk about here is the experience you had at the Bay101 Shooting Star just recently. To give everyone a perspective, and for those of you who have been watching my videos and listening to the radio show, you'll know, but this was a time, March 11th, which was a Wednesday. That's the day it started, the main event. It was supposed to be a 4-day event, but due to the concerns of the coronavirus, Matt Savage determined to make it a 3-day event. There was also a smaller turnout than expected, so that obviously helped to do that. Played some more levels on day 2. Everyone came back on day 3. One of the gentlemen had said that he did not feel well, and now ICM discussions were in play, and they started as early as end of day 2, and then on day 3, it was ultimately determined that an ICM chop would be made. Craig Varnell, who was leading, ended up getting the most money. Yourself ended up getting the second most money. Why I wanted to talk to you, we've had Craig on, we've had Matt Savage on. I want to kind of take it back from your perspective, maybe even a little bit before the actual event itself. Like, leading up to the event, were you concerned? What was the scenario? And again, I've said this on every single video, I've said this on every radio interview we've had over this month. Please, everyone, don't think of it in today's terms. Think of it back over about a month ago when in early March, my kids were still in school. A lot of people were still working. Poker tournaments across the world were still being played. The thought of casinos being locked down, like Alex Torelli, who's been a guest on our show, claimed that would happen, people were just, no way that that's going to happen. So please put that all into perspective. When this event started on March 11th, nothing was shut down. So
Yeah.
what was your thought process going into the event, going there? Was it not really much of a concern for you at first? What kind of was your thought process?
I would say at first it wasn't a huge concern. I was in Australia in January, where I know that people had just started talking about it. Not so much in North America, it seemed, but actually, I forget exactly where I stayed, but I remember I was playing the Australian Open, and at the hotel next door, it had been claimed that somebody had been diagnosed with it. And I started reading about it, and things like that are kind of fascinating to me anyways. Like, if you've seen the movie Contagion, it's kind of, it's fascinating and interesting. And so around that time, we started reading about it a little bit, and there's conspiracy theories, which are always kind of interesting to read as well.
Sure.
And you see, on media, on Twitter, there's some people saying, oh, this is no big deal, it's not as serious as the flu, don't worry about it. And then on the other hand, oh my God, this is going to be really bad. And you have people who are already preparing, stockpiling,
Sure,
food and things like that. And I think it was kind of okay, wait and see kind of thing. And I understand that I'm fortunate enough to hopefully not be in a high risk situation that I feel like I need to take extreme precautions. It wasn't oh no, this is happening, we need to go home now and quarantine ourselves.
Sure.
Absolutely not. I don't think anyone was thinking that way. There was definitely thoughts of, okay, I remember traveling home from Australia, Alex wore a mask, and it was should we do that? Should we start wearing them? And we need to be, careful. And definitely around then it was okay, being a little bit more aware of washing hands, things like that. Definitely never had any thought that the situation would be what it is now, that pretty much all of the world is shut down. And so I think from Australia, we went to LAPC. And of course, as Matt Savage said, like LAPC was right before Bay 101. And it was just, it all moved really quickly. It felt like within that week, each day, kind of things got eerier and eerier.
Right.
Like it's hard to really explain the feeling that was happening around the casinos, but you felt, I had some friends who chose not to travel to the events because they were kind of, I would say, like the more intelligent group of like understanding the severity of the whole situation. And, for us, it was kind of like, well, we're putting trust in the authorities, so to say. And it's like, if they're going to run the event, we're there, Now, do you want me to speak specifically about that day, the final table day?
Well, so you mentioned that you were going to play in the tournament. Wasn't you said, if they're going to play it, we're going to play it. Day one, which was March 11th, that was the day where, in my view, that changed the United States completely, because I still remember that was the day that my son, that was his semifinal day for the state tournament. I was at dinner at 6 o'clock with all the other parents, and we were talking about, I still remember I was saying to them, I'm leaving on Sunday to go play in the World Series circuit, and for the next 4 or 6 weeks I'm traveling. I said, quote, it'll be very interesting to see what happens. And then we play the game, and as the game finishes, the buzz goes around the whole arena. The NBA just shut down.
Yeah.
30 minutes later, Tom Hanks just got tested positive.
Yeah.
Colleges across our area were shutting their spring sports down. All of a sudden, everyone looked at each other going, wait, this is serious. And it's horrible to say that it takes the NBA, a multi-billion-dollar business, to shut down.
Yeah.
For someone like Tom Hanks to get it, that everyone's now like, this is serious.
Yeah.
What was the buzz around that day one, when that happened?
Yeah, we were all playing. I kind of remember. I think it was, it must have been on TV or Twitter, things like that. And then everybody was like, oh my God, that's shut down. Right. And, we're amidst a poker tournament in that moment. And even before we got to Bay 101, for day one, the casino was very concerned with like sanitation of everything. Like there was hand sanitizer everywhere.
Right.
Everybody was really already in that, like, let's try and be super clean. Everyone has like hand sanitizer and going crazy with that. I had a little bit of a cough and I was like, oh no, are they going to kick me out?
Right.
I don't know, which is actually kind of interesting. And what I was, Matt, I saw on Twitter, was kind of saying that he was feeling bad after that.
Right.
I definitely had some weird symptoms, and it makes me almost wonder if there was a bunch of us that have like had it and been exposed. I don't know. I mean, it's very likely, very, very likely. So I thought that was kind of an interesting side note that, perhaps because there was a bunch of us that were sick, like not showing huge symptoms. I had like some days that I had weird symptoms, but anyways, that's a whole nother thing. But it just sort of, as you said, it was like a moment changed, and then all of a sudden each day change was like, massive. So from day one to day three, it was like, pretty crazy and bizarre. And then we were everyone was put in this really weird situation of like, we come in to play the final table, and some people are like absolutely panicked and dealing with that, and then dealing with the situation of, okay, how do we, take everybody's health and safety? And then also, we're playing a poker tournament, and now there's a lot of money in the prize pool. Where do you kind of balance and decide what to do? Right.
So what Matt had said was day two, with everyone questioning and understanding what's going on, because I think that in that interim period of time, it went from beginning of the week, the governor of California said no crowds greater than 1,000. To switching over to day two saying, okay, no more bigger than 250. Yeah. You've got 75 people in the tournament, so it's still in that range. Yeah. But then people are talking about, Matt decides to kind of, make it 8-handed, which is unusual for Shooting Star. And then also, okay, let's play some extra levels to get as far down as we can. Yeah. And then at the end of day two, what was the discussion? Was there discussion of ICM at all among the players? I know Matt had prepared for it in case, but was there any discussion? What were the players saying of, are we going to ICM? Are you concerned that the casino may be closed the next day, et cetera, et cetera? Just curious how the players were reacting.
It was just really brief, and I think that it quickly got shut down because there was a bunch of people who were like, "No, we're not going to drop on day
Right,
two."
right,
Like,
right,
what the hell? We came here for a poker tournament. We're in day two. Like, let's play this
right,
out.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So
Obviously,
it got shut down quite quickly, and then actually towards the end of the evening before we bagged, I think when we bagged, it got brought up again.
yeah,
And Matt was kind of like, everyone needs to agree. There was a few of us who didn't agree, so it was like, okay, let's come back tomorrow and then discuss.
right,
But like probably play it out.
right. So
Yeah.
you come back day 3. Now, one of the gentlemen is mentioning that he's not feeling that well, and
Yeah.
then obviously you and Craig, 2 chip leaders, a lot of money up top. Well in the 6 figures, like 300 and something for first. Definitely some short stacks, etc. What was it from your perspective? Because what I'm doing in this whole interview process of interviewing all the different people is you're just basically watching the same scene from different eyes, right? And
Yeah.
and it's like watching a movie, and like the camera's watching from here, and now the camera just moves over to here, etc. So I kind of want to hear it from your perspective. What did you kind of basically witness through this whole process?
Yeah. Well, when I walked in for the final day, I'd seen Michael, like the player who wasn't feeling good, like have a mask and kind of he was sitting like away from everybody. And I could just tell on everyone's face, like from a distance, that like something wasn't right. Everyone looked like incredibly worried, and yeah, it was I was just like, what's happening? And so I went closer, and then they kind of said like, he's not feeling good, what are we going to do? And you had, a few players who were very like freaked out, wanted to go home, all of that. And I think it's a situation where it's tough because, as like any kind of catastrophe or anything kind of happens in the world that's like can put panic into you, you don't want to act like out of complete fear and complete like panic, right? So anyways, I walk in, we start having the discussion of what to do. And people are saying, let's just ICM chop and like get out of here. Like the casino's going to shut down tonight. And I was kind of like, what? Like, for one thing, I thought it felt weird to think the casino was going to be shut down, right?
How could
like,
the casino shut
really?
down? Never.
Like, this seems shocking. So there was a little bit of like disbelief or like skepticism in that. And I walked into the casino and people are playing blackjack, people are playing 1-2 tables. I'm like, why can't we play our final table?
Right.
So anyways, but what I really thought at the time was, if you want my opinion of what we should have done, I think that the player who wasn't feeling good, it seems reasonable for him to go. We could have cleaned everything well and kind of continued to play and play it out. There was, 8 of us or 10 of us in a big area. It didn't feel particularly like cramped. I don't know if you've played there before, but it was, I mean, it felt like, I hate to say it, but like if we were exposed to it, if he was positive for that, he had been playing the previous days, he probably still was contagious. Do you know what I mean? Like that's where I'm saying like the panic of like, oh no, now we need to get out of here. It's like, yeah, but probably we've been exposed now at this point. So, changing it now isn't going to do something. In my opinion, of course, like you want to be smart about that and, understand, oh, okay, we might be exposed to this. So what can I do? And that's kind of where I look at this situation is like, okay, I might have been exposed. I'm going to make my immune system like, as strong as I can. So I'll take vitamin C. Or maybe you could treat yourself as if you were exposed and then do research with that and figure out what would we do in that case. And, I felt a little bit like apprehensive to fly after that because I'm thinking there's a good chance I'm exposed and I wasn't feeling great either. So I kind of had my own feelings about that. Like, am I being irresponsible? Should I, like, what do I do? Do I go to the hospital? I definitely don't feel like terrible. I feel fine. I went to the gym. I felt okay. So it was just a situation of like unknowns and you see how people react. It was an interesting like social experiment.
I was going to say, it must have been, right.
Because you see how, you have a couple people being like, panicked. I just want to go home. I can't think. Right. And then you have the other side and we're like, I'd like to think I fall somewhere in the middle. I understand it's a very serious situation, but I do understand that we've been playing this tournament for 3 days. We you know, all touched his poker chips probably that he touched if
Right.
he had it. And kind of like, okay, well, now what do we do? And I didn't think that necessarily panicking and thinking we need to fly home at that very moment, you know, we probably would have played for like 6 or 7 hours more. So it didn't seem like a huge stretch or like a terrible decision to do that. Of course, if on that day it was day 2, I would say like, okay, yes, we need to cancel the tournament and everybody needs to get home. Like there was travel restrictions coming into play,
Right.
all of that sort of thing. But I think if we were there at 10 a.m., leaving at, or whatever it was, noon, if we were there at noon, I don't think leaving at 7 p.m. would have made a huge difference. This was my opinion.
Right.
It could be completely uneducated
Right.
and naive and maybe influenced, you know, about the fact that I did want to play.
Sure.
So,
Well, the interesting thing also was that the casino got shut down. So there was a chance that you guys could have been playing four-handed, and they're like, okay, this is not a choice anymore. Get out.
Yeah.
You know, and that would have obviously thrown a little bit of a weird wrench into the whole mix as well. The one thing that for everyone who hasn't seen or heard the interview with Matt Savage, Michael did not test positive for it. He was fine. He was okay. So that was the good news from that side of the house as well. Because there was, like you said, there were a lot of concerns of what to do. And again, I think it's such an interesting social I don't want to say experiment, but just analysis of how, exactly, observing how people were reacting, etc. And again, it's a scenario that is unprecedented in a lot of respects, you know, and you know, it's you don't want to say like crying wolf, you know, but you have heard of other scenarios from China before that didn't affect, like SARS, for example. It didn't affect us to that extent. You have, you know, other airborne diseases or mosquito-borne diseases that we wouldn't shut down the world. They're all, you know, spray yourself, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to really make sure everyone puts that in perspective, because I'll be honest with you, that's the way I was feeling. I'm like, it's not
nobody in our generation has gone through a pandemic, right? That's actually
no one's ever seen something of this magnitude. And I think it's just amazing how the world suddenly went from LAPC, Thunder Valley, like Matt Savage was saying, to, oh, we're playing, a few people are having masks, somebody's not feeling well, to, I want to get the hell out of here because I don't want to get sick. You know, and it's truly an amazing experience, obviously, that happened. Well, next week we are going to talk more with Kristen about her career, her 3-time Female GPI Player of the Year, her 2 WSOP bracelets. It is a fascinating ride. You won't want to miss it. Part 2 of our YouTube interview with Kristen Bicknell. Kristen, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me. And everyone out there, don't forget, like and subscribe.